Let's go.
All right, no countdown today. We're just going right for it, huh, Curtis? Okay, that's great. You nailed it, bud. Hello, and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 150. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion, and today we're talking all about physical media and making physicals for your releases. We're going to be talking about a new release on our end, Audionautic, and on my end, my new album, Through the Quiet Dark, which I happen to make cassettes for, which might seem weird or strange, but we're going to talk about why, and then we're going to talk about different options for physicals you can make, why maybe you should consider physicals in general, whatever format or media, and then a couple different ways to do it. There's a couple things to consider. We focus not on making large numbers, massive amounts, because that's one way you can do it, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but we're actually going to talk about ways to do it with lower budgets and lower overhead and front-end costs, more like on-demand type of stuff. My name is Sunwarper, and I can see that I got some of the cassette heads in the chat mad that I said it might seem weird. I understand that, but it might seem weird to some people. But yes, I know those that love cassette. Yes, it doesn't seem weird at all. It's awesome, and it's a really interesting format that has I guess, seen quite the resurgence of late. But my name's Sunwarper. With me today, I want to mention we finally have Eonlake back. So I want to see and catch up with Eonlake real quick. What's going on, man? Hello. How are you?
I am better than I have been. Thank you very much. I'm good. And I'm glad to be back. And yeah, I have been minging for England recently, but all better now. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're better. So what have you been up to that you're able to or willing to share?
Naturally, I've been spending most of my convalescence time listening to the new Sunwarper release. Don't know if you've heard it, but it's very good.
I still have to listen to it.
It did. I got to be honest, it really annoyed me at first because knowing about the chaos during which it was created, I listened to it, and it's the first thing that struck me was this lightness and ease to it. It's something I'd love to get in my music.
Just have another kid, don't sleep at all, and just
sounded so at ease.
Just find a happy place in your music. That's all you gotta do.
Not bogged down with overproduction or anything. It just yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I feel such like imposter syndrome with this album because so much of it was done completely different from anything I've ever done before. It was all just the songs I made on YouTube. One of them was even literally a rip off of the YouTube. Like I ripped the live performance I made and was like, I didn't have any way to get that track. It was gone. It got deleted on like the stuff. So I was like, well, so I just ripped it from that, stem split it, added some stuff, tried to kind of build the quality back up, and it worked.
But it kicks off great. It's all breezy and confident and just does its thing in a way that I was a bit envious of, to be fair.
Well, I mean, the feeling's mutual when I listen to your stuff. I'm like, how can I get that dark and dour? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, man. I love your approach to production. So yeah, I always am envious of yours, but yeah.
But yeah, that second track is my favorite with the really stabby chords on that synth sound. Really good.
Wait, hold up? Is that Lingering Light? Is that the one we're doing the remix of? I forgot the track list already. No, Chroma Prism. Yeah. Okay. So that's that's a synth I recorded a pad sound from the mini log and then chopped it in slice mode on the Digitac, and I'm playing the slices on the Digitac. Yeah, that's a ton of fun. So then you get chords out of these single notes.
It's really good. I love that. Yeah. I just love that riff. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about that later, but I'm glad you're doing all right. I'm glad have you had some time to work on music at all a little bit? Anything?
Or a little bit. You know what? And I did have time to review. I've got a lot of material and I've reviewed it all and done some cataloging, and I feel a lot better about what's coming up now. Got a few songs in the can that I actually do quite like. And
yes,
you know how when you start with a project, there's always like one song that once you get that song, you think, okay, we're off now. I've got that in the bag. I feel like, something's happening now. And I've got about 4 of those. So, yeah, it's good. I've had a little bit of time. hard to do when I was ill. It felt really confusing and hard to work. But
I remember when I had COVID, and like even 2 weeks afterwards, I tried to make music, and my brain just had fog. Just I could not do anything for like a month. Yeah,
it's
so
absolutely the problem.
Be easy on yourself. Take it little by little. You know, don't be too hard on yourself with it. You were sick, so yeah, just recover. Focus on recovery first.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. It's great to have you today. And it's just good to see you again, man. But also with me today is my Audionautic co-pilot, Curtis. What is up, my friend?
It's good. It's been a week. It's been a week. It's been a week. It's bloody cold here, so it's a lot of time wrapping up.
What's the temperature?
I think today it was minus 13, minus 14 today.
Hold on, I'm gonna put that in what's it called?
Fahrenheit. Freedom units.
Freedom units. I'm gonna Google. I want to see. We'll continue. I'm just curious to see how cold that is.
No, it's been good. I think
Google actually understood. I put negative 13 Celsius to freedom units, and it put it's 9 degrees Fahrenheit.
There you go.
In quote, freedom units.
Sorted. That's all you need.
There we go.
Yeah. In a similar vein to Eonlake, really. I've been spending the time coming to the synth or coming to the guitar or whatever, just picking it up and then going, ugh, no, I'm not in it. I'm not in the headspace for it. And so I've been cataloging as well. I've got that big spreadsheet where I've got all of my projects in, and turns out I've got quite a few. I've uncovered a few little EPs that I'd forgotten I'd made. And so
on the back of the sofa.
It's just that's
okay.
There's a little 5-track there, you know, and it's like
it's handy when that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, I just forgot it existed, you know. I think
how many years ago are we talking about that you made it?
Some of them are conversations with a friend when he was in Oaxaca, so at least 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Very much on the back end of COVID.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so they're just sitting there, and so I've it all came about because of once again it's that time of year. I've come back to Brian, and I'm determined to finish Brian this year, and send it to Lars and then that kind of took me down a rabbit hole of these unopened folders that just kind of sitting there, some from my old laptop, some from the new one, and so it's just been kind of collating where I'm at, you know. We're trying not to. We spoke about this at the beginning of the year, trying not so much to worry about deadlines and putting things out and work to a schedule other than your own, right? And so I'm just in that process working on main album has kind of dwindled somewhat as I've got a bit bored and I've got out of the mixing game. So it's brought up other things. So it's a balancing game, seeing where we're at, I call it a state of the field, where we're at and what we're up to, essentially.
I got you. That's cool. Well, I'm glad you found some more albums to put out or EPs. Just, that's there. Didn't even remember that one. That's funny.
So how about yourself, brother? What you been up to?
Just promo, making videos, and figuring out how to do my next SP live set for this album. So I was kind of like figuring out the way I'm gonna perform it, because originally I was gonna do like a guitar as well, but I kind of want to do it out like at a park or something, and I don't really want to lug like the SP and a guitar. So instead I'm just chopping up parts, like one main, like, this is the synth part. The problem is, since a lot of this involved stem splitting, the synth part in later sections has some of the upper frequencies of the bass and stuff. So I've had to figure out kind of like, I can perform in this part when that's not there, and then when that comes in, I'm gonna have to let it kind of just play the one shot or the backing track in the background and stuff. So that it's been an interesting way of figuring out how can you take these kinds of stems that have stem split artifacting and then make a live performance from it. So weird stuff.
Because it's interesting, right? Because we talked about, you've been a big proponent of stem splitting since stem splitting was really made a big coming into the world in the last year or so. I suppose this is the back end of that now. if that makes sense. Like you've
well, so this is stem splitting as a mixing tool, and then when you realize that, oh, now if I'm trying to make a live set out of it, I'm gonna have to deal with these artifacts that weren't necessarily an issue when you're mixing, because everything's still there. You're just adding additional mixing things to it, you know, side chain compression and things like that. So yeah, it's like, oh, okay. So like there was one song, what's it called? Fading Trails. The bass synth in it has a lot of, I did that kind of like Roy G. Biv, Boards of Canada bass sound, but it was all from Quokka synth and Koala. And the high frequencies of it, like the very distorted part, are actually in the stem. That's the melodic segment, like the higher end frequency. So when I was trying to not have that in there, because I was playing the loop from the intro as a chop, the bass just did not have its full sound. It was missing all of that high end information because that was in the wrong stem. So I was like, oh, okay. So I had to figure that one out.
Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. Like, again, so like, yeah, it's an interesting journey, right? Like we going from the different artifacting, the different forms of stem splitting, and then, you know, that adds another level to it now. Like, what's it going to be like to reproduce this when we want to put it into either an Ableton set or an SP set or something like that? Like, that's an interesting, it's a really interesting discussion. And I think keep an eye on that one, because I'd love to bring that up.
I mean,
and get to it. You know?
I could have solved a lot of it by not being lazy and just going to the actual sounds from on the gear I made. Like, I could just go into Koala and isolate those sounds and just put it there. But I'm like, that's so much extra effort when I already have the mixed version. It's like
I could have solved a lot of it by not being lazy.
But you know what? I wouldn't do it if I did that. If I was like, I'm gonna go into the project file, isolate everything, send it to this, then put it. It's like, that's so much effort. I'd rather just get it done. And I'm in that phase. I don't have time to do that type of stuff right now with, you know, a kid and stuff. So it's like I'm in the phase where it's like I just have to do whatever's gonna work. And so I had the songs split as stems through that. So it's like, okay, I'll just throw those on, and then where there's issues, I'm gonna find a little creative workaround for it and then go from there. Because now I've almost got the set done, and I only spent, well, like set up, I should say, not done. I have to practice it, but I've only spent like maybe an hour and a half yesterday getting all those sounds, mapping out like, okay, in this part, I'm going to do that. So I have to kind of finalize it and formalize it, but it worked. So
I kind of like that deconstruction stage, really. Well, how the hell am I going to play this then? Because there are different ways, there are decisions. Aren't there? And I look around me for all my bandmates to go, right, who's going to, oh, it's just me. Oh,
yeah, it's just me.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, it'd be a different story if I was playing live instruments into the SP like I originally intended. But because I don't want to do that, I want to keep it SP only so that it's in just one box and can be portable. It's figuring out, okay, I need a sound that I can put in chromatic mode to play a synth, or I want these chops of the pad, you know, to have like quarter notes as individual sample pads and stuff. So yeah, just figuring out all of that is a lot of fun. And then you can kind of map out the set, and then you want to think about like the journey the sounds are going through. Like, how can I create momentum throughout the the session or the set, you know, so that it's always moving and things. Because all my songs are in weird genres, right? They go around. So it's like, how can I kind of bring cohesion to this chaos?
That makes sense.
I mean, mention the G word.
Yeah, true. But even if you don't, it's still like, okay, one song is a ambient vignette, and then the next one has some like, you know, really heavy 4 on the floor drums or something. Like, how do you bridge that gap? You know, good, yeah, okay. Well, I know my audience. Then, when you think of the audience, it's Eonlake just sitting there watching. Go good.
I think some things like to sort of blend and merge and twist from one to the other, and sometimes just. Boom, now we're doing
next, you know.
Now for something completely different.
That's when you just hit the stopper on the SP and it just goes,
yeah,
and then you just go to the next song.
Just boom.
But it's an interesting one. You touch on something rather interesting, because like almost like the DJ-fication of performance, right? Like DJs, they're meant to create like an hour set, and it's meant to be seamless, and you're not meant to really notice the changes, because really you're meant to keep munching your face off and stomping your foot on the floor, right? That's the idea behind it, right? So like but there's nothing wrong particularly with just having this is my song, and then this is the start of the song and going through. So I mean, it's a good problem to have, and I imagine it's creating within you another level of it's almost like you're rewriting the song or rewriting the album in its own right, making it flow in its own regard. It works, you know.
Yeah,
nice.
See, I don't want to make it confusing. I'm not trying to like sync BPMs and have the drums fade in from one to the other one fade out. All like I had someone mention basically exactly what you two said on explainer video I did where I was breaking down a live set, and they were like, you can end songs, you don't have to like do an effect to fade into the next one. But okay, what I'm making is not out live performance per se, it's a YouTube video, right? So someone's watching it. I want it to be seamless, not necessarily following a BPM and going at that. I just like to have like I just like you were saying, Curtis, to have it kind of sound like one sound, one song, you know, like a journey. And so what I'll do is like as the song's ending, I might like loop sound from it with a delay, like with high feedback or 100% feedback, and then let that ring out, maybe change the timing of the delay so it does some crazy glitch, and then go into the next song, you know? So there's like something there, or add a huge reverb so it's just a wash of sound and then bring in the next song. That's what I like to do.
I think that's fair.
Another thing I think I'll do next time is actually play some in between bits.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing something like that, but I just like I don't want to take the time to do that part.
Join certain bits that maybe don't want to join otherwise, so you can kind of write them together rather than trying to mash them together,
or even like a spoken word
that moves you from one together. Exactly, that sort of thing as well.
Or a drone, and then you have talking on top, you know, like a movie clip or something cliche, but whatever.
Deliberate interlude, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's a good problem to have in that sense. Like I know you don't want to carry much with you, and you want it to be all on the SP and stuff like that, and that makes sense. Like having all that at your fingertips can make at that point, right? So for those of us who, you know, follow the release and I've listened to the album, know what it is, and know the journey that you're on, having something which is album adjacent, right? It's a live version of the album, which is slightly different. It kind of it creates that deeper meaning and deeper connection to the story itself. It's like another chapter or alternative split reality in that sense, and that's just wonderful to witness.
Not to mention, you can have it as a separate release as part of a remix album or something. You can have the live version or something like that, you know? So
exactly.
Ideas. Yeah, I really like treating a live set as, you know, something slightly different and putting it in a different context. I just typically like, I want to get this live set done probably in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, have the video out in about 3 weeks. So I had to kind of think, how can I do it quickly, but also quality, right? You know, like in a way. So that's why my idea is do these one shots of little chopped synths or whatever, like one instrument from the track, and play those while a backing track's playing, kind of DJing between songs and stuff, doing live effects, and then also be able to do chromatic mode and actually play like a synth on top, maybe expand parts, do sorts of remixes to tracks, things like that. So yeah, there's a lot there. Like in one of the songs, I'm actually changing the first chorus. Like I remove some parts and then I'm doing something live on top of it. So it's like, how can you kind of twist it and change it so that it has a new context to it, but is still familiar? And again, this is for making a live set for a YouTube video. If I was going to go out and play these live, which at some point I want to, when there's more time or something, I would bring an instrument or two instruments, or maybe use the Digitact and actually sequence sounds or something. Like I would want to have something more expansive, but sometimes that just adds more chaos and you want to keep it simple. So
it's true. It's like, especially if you're trying something new for the first time, keeping it together is, or keeping it unitary in that sense is probably a better idea. You don't want to be losing yourself. You want to, you still want to be in the moment. You still want to be able to have confidence in what you're doing, because that energy is transferred across camera, right? Or in a live production. That said, I know that you don't want to carry much gear around. The mini log that you got there isn't that big.
But if I'm at a park, how am I going to charge it or power it?
You not got a what is it, power bank?
I don't maybe, but I have to power the SP somehow. I have one, I don't have two. We have one power bank. What about second power bank? No, I don't have two. But I was thinking maybe the S1.
Okay.
All right. I just don't want to take the time to, because like you were saying, every single piece of gear or something you add adds margins of error or room for error, right? And the more error there is, the more it could go wrong. So I wanted to just keep it simple. And yeah, because then I'd have to learn the synth parts, play it on that tiny little keyboard. You know, I'd rather play the sample pads as chromatic mode on the SP because I can just do that quickly. But I hear you. At some point, I want to do a bigger live set. The first live set I did for YouTube was with the circuit and the SP. And then that was such a headache that I was like, just do SP for the rest of them.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be
learning experience, wasn't
it? Exactly.
I really do think that you need to keep it as simple as you can and only introduce where you need to as you go along.
Yeah.
And you'll know.
Yeah. All right. With that, before we move into physicals, let's say hello to all of our chat. Lars is in the green room and he looks super pissed driving. Now he's happy because I mentioned him, but I saw him go like, you know, like that.
He's driving.
That's why we never bring him in when he's driving. Because if we mention anything about Spotify, that's just an extra layer of just his head will explode into a cloud of rage. But anyways, want to say hello to all of our friends and patrons in the chat. Smiling Airs is here, says let's go. Survey Channel says greetings all, what's going on? We've also got Abby in the chat, one of our patrons. Hello. Lars was in the chat. Hopefully he's not in the chat now as he drives, but you know, whatever. What's going on, Lars? Welcome. We'll bring you in a bit because Lars actually is the one that helped me make, he made these cassettes. Who else do we have? We have Sleeping State. What's going on? And then Survey Channel says, I think in regards to the album, he nailed it. Well, thank you if that's it. I'm going to remix the hell out of Lingering Light. Yeah, we're going to talk about the remix challenge we're doing soon. This really intrigues me, though. Smiling Air says, I'm planning on putting a melody made from Scream samples over it. All right. That's awesome. What else do we have? For you, Curtis, Sleeping State says 12 releases in the year. Curtis' calendar is set. Lars says 12 full albums in a year sounds draining. Yeah. That does indeed. Like musically, it will make you feel like an empty tube of toothpaste. You've had to roll the back end to get the remnants out for that last album. There you go. Anything else we got? Here we go. This is interesting. Speaking of, Survey Channel says, I may consider stem splitting my new stuff to try and build a chopped up live set. Didn't really think of that. Yeah, I talked about that. If you want to check out my last live stream, I talked about how I actually mixed the songs. I'm going to make one as we get closer to the live set, talking about how I prepped the songs to turn into like chop things for the live set. So yeah, but if you ever want to talk about that, hit me up in the Discord. We can talk about that. But I will cover that soon. But yeah, stem splitting has a lot of interesting potentials or opportunities with what you can do with it beyond just kind of like, I want the drums from this track to make a loop. Like I was using it for mixing tracks, and you just have to get a little creative when you find artifacts, because there will, at least for now, there will always be some kind of artifact in it. Sleeping State says, as a live spectacle, those tiny keyboards would be baffling to watch for you, perhaps. But I mean, if it's making noise, I don't think most would care. Survey Channel says, Lars, the cassette man. There you go. Yeah.
He shrugged at that. He
shrugs.
In a very cheeky manner.
He is the cassette man, though. He also sent me. I had to move it for the photos, but he sent me his the disc. For the floppy disk for his. Yeah, he's nodding at it. Yeah, I have no way to listen to it, but I was like, this is so cool. But it was cool. That's kind of the thing, though, where I'm at with physical media too. It's like not necessarily to listen with it, but to have an actual physical manifestation or representation of art that you can actually have and see. Because like I don't have a floppy disk, what is a disk drive, but just having it, I can listen to it on Bandcamp, but like having that just kind of adds that it's in the real world. It's like, oh, Lars made this, and now I share in that in a way. So I think that's a good way to kind of move into physical. So Curtis, how do you want to talk about this?
I'm going to have to flip things around because you basically answered my first question.
There we go. Well, why don't you say the first question and then
Well, we wanted to talk about this. We wanted to take this artist spotlight and look at it from a physical perspective, right? So like obviously it's been released and it's out there. But yeah, the fundamental question is in this modern era of the music industry, why did you decide to put Through the Quiet Dark out on cassette? What was the driving factor, and what made you make it happen?
Yeah, so let me just write this note real quick in our docket. Yeah, so I really wanted to do physical. We've done physicals for a lot of my releases before, but I've always done, or typically, I learned after my first release years ago when I made 100 of a CD, and I still have some sitting back there. But I've done the on demand, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But I've always done the on demand, and then for the last album, Music for Imagined Landscapes, I made and ordered 5 at once, shipped them to me, and then I also made art booklets because it was using art, to tell this story and stuff. And so I made this kind of deluxe edition, limited edition, whatever you want to call it. And those sold out really quick. And I got a lot of messages about, how special it was, things like that. And I just like doing something like that. So I wanted to try something new. Lars has been droning on and on about cassettes and how he got, I think we can call it tape duplicators, whatever you want to call it, how he can do the duplication process. He's going like this. It's probably a better word. If he wants to say it, or Eonlake, you're welcome to. But I was like, let's try cassettes out, because I like that cassettes are kind of like, CD's just this flat thing, but cassettes just feel different, right? And they have the cool colors we can do and like all that type of stuff. So I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I talked with Lars about it, and I just have been so, what do you want to call it? But fatigued and just kind of over the idea of music streaming, right? Streaming music, it's all about getting placed in playlists, inactive listening. Even those that listen to you, you're just another search away. You're just on a screen and you're just coming out of a speak. It's just like, it's very inauthentic almost feeling like there's not this connection and stuff. And so I wanted to try something where you can kind of bring that connection back, right? You can make a physical representation of your art and share it with someone. So that's why I wanted to do physicals.
And I mean, it makes sense in that regard. Like you say, it's almost, if streaming is so separated from the art and so separate from the artist's journey, physical media in that regard is the absolute antithesis of that. It's the way that you are tangibly connected to the artist. Not only are you giving your money and supporting the work, but you have a fragment of the artwork, or the art in its own right, in that sense.
It feels like it's becomes more real, right? It's a tangible piece of the real world rather than just this ones and zeros or whatever on a screen, in this digital sea. So in that vein, yeah, you're right. We've done lots of CDs on Audionautic Records, but this is the first time that we've come and done cassettes. What made you push into the realm of cassettes? Lars.
No,
honestly, just talking with Lars about all that. He had been doing all these Goodwill finds for things to make cassettes and all that, and he started his label where he was doing small tape runs, and I was just like, that might be something cool. I've done CDs. We did the limited edition CDs. We did 7-inch vinyls. I've never ventured into cassette, and I thought with this album being more lo-fi in its approach, with one being made on hardware, but then also needing to do stem splitting, and this type of stuff, like the production is I don't want to say far less, it's less intensive in terms of like, I'm not making a gazillion tracks on a DAW. I made the sounds, I sampled them. Like the video I'm editing for Saturday is how I made the first track, Iridescent Bloom, and I was watching it back, and I recorded the mini log in one take, and I'm like, that's close enough, whatever. And then I just used that sample, and it's like, worrying less, because I always have this perfectionist tendency. And so I wanted to worry less. But anyways, to get back to that, it's that lo-fi aesthetic kind of where I was like, ooh, cassettes might be a really interesting way to go with that. And then I also just wanted to, talking with Lars about it and seeing what he's making and stuff, I wanted to see what the cassette would actually look like rather than just a CD or something. So yeah, and I'll read some chat in a second. We've got some good chat. Eonlake, is there anything you want to cover before we go back to Curtis?
No, I just wanted to say how much I agree with you, really. And I think, when you're designing physical media and packaging and so on, and how you want it to be presented to people, it does feel like a natural extension of the artistic process, and the artwork feels like it's everything to do with it. And maybe it's because I'm someone that old and I'm used to interacting and consuming music in that way back in the day, but it's just really nice to have something to hold that links to what you're listening to, that is a physical manifestation of what you're listening to, and it's all joined up. It's all got it's all got a particular style or vibe to it. It's all deliberate, and I like that totality of aesthetic, So yeah, it makes absolute sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you're saying kind of relates to what Survey Channel is saying. So I want to read that because there's something else I wanted to mention too, going off of both of those. Survey Channel says, listening to physical media, the experience is a reciprocal imprinting of emotion between the listener and the physical item. Think about it. That's why it must be preserved and continued. And that's very well said. And as Eonlake said, very nicely put. One thing I wanted to discuss too is that I wanted this album to be an album. And I feel like in the digital age, especially with playlists and stuff, it loses that. Like you can just go and click the third track, the fourth track, whatever. And of course on a CD, even on cassette, you could skip to things and stuff. But I feel like with an album on physical media, it's presenting it as one piece. You can't, when you're listening to that actual format, you can't be like, okay, now I want to hear this song from this artist after this song. It's like, this is the closest representation to how I want this to be heard. Like, this is it. Yeah. This is that realization of it. And
in that order as well.
Say again, Eonlake?
In that order as well. You've thought about the running order.
Yeah.
It's all very deliberate, so that what the artist intended. Even if you do skip tracks or listen to them in the wrong order or whatever, you've still got these belong together, and they belong together in this order. Enjoy it how you will, but that's how it was intended, and I like that.
Yeah,
it's a very different. I say very different. It's something that was in recent history, which I believe has been lost with the advent of streaming and stuff like that, where you can instantly skip. And there is something to be said for a collection of sonics which tell a story beginning, middle, and end, and don't necessarily link on to the next or whatever. But the idea is that you're meant to put it in and you're meant to sit and listen to it for 40-45 minutes, and then that is the time, and it's meant to be all taken as one. It's a very different transcendental experience to clocking on, putting on a single, and then going to the next one. I think it's a lot more. I don't know about you guys. You kind of get lost in it a lot more. You have a deeper connection to what you're doing because it's not. You're not thinking about the next track, right? You're not thinking about what's coming next, so you're not queuing anything, right? If you're thinking about Bandcamp, or you're thinking about Spotify or whatever, you're not already thinking about the next one. You're sitting there. You're more in the present moment as you work with it, and there's something remarkably cathartic about that.
Yeah, not only that, but something, you're right completely, but something too with vinyl and cassettes would be the actual necessity of you needing to interact with it to get to the other side. It's like it's an engagement between you and the album in an interesting way. Just like an actual, you have to make this effort to be like, well, I want to keep listening. Let's hear, flip it or turn it. There's something to that. I don't know. There's something special in that.
It's a little more active. It's
proactive. Sides. Sorry.
No, so go ahead, man.
I was just saying, even the concepts of sides I like. Although I do have a cassette deck somewhere in the house that does that auto reverse.
Yeah.
So you don't have to turn it over; it just goes clunk.
Well, you're making the machine do it.
It goes clunk. That's the thing. It goes clunk, and that's it. It's a physical piece.
It's happening. That's for sure. Yeah,
and it's doing it, and it's physically doing it. It's not. As you say, it's not just numbers on a screen. It's not beaming something from a server somewhere out in a colder region. There is something in that, especially with tape, where it's physically imprinted into the tape, and it's there, and it's always going to be there. In that sense, it's a doomsday device, the absolute best and well-mannered meaning of it.
Even psychologically, I like the idea with tape that all of these, magnetic particles have been lined up, so it sounds like that.
Yeah,
I love that as an idea.
Very good way of putting it. Yeah.
And the other thing too is, with digital things like streaming, we've seen songs get removed And you can look at media like Netflix or some movies and stuff, because of the deals between corporations and all that, are on no form of streaming at the moment. They're just lost, and maybe you can't even buy the physical because it was a digital only release or something. So it's like, even if there's only a couple out in the world, it will always theoretically exist, or at least exist in a way that it wouldn't, should it be removed from all streaming and stuff like that, or if I lose all the files and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that feeling. It's a bit like when CD was invented. Thought they'll last forever. Hody ho. And you can't stop them playing. But with streaming, you kind of thought, well, once it's out there, it's out there. You can never go. But now we know, artists have had their entire catalogs taken down for no reason, with no warning, just like that. And even when, mistakes like that have been remedied at a later date, there's a knock-on effect to stats and playlists that you've dropped off of and can't get back on again because, your song has been reinstated. It's just, you realize, nothing is forever unless you're sat there looking at it, holding it,
Yeah.
And I imagine as well, like after a couple of years, anyone who's gone and bought the cassette, which if you're interested in it, the link is in the description. We put a link to it down there. Tapes will get a bit worn and they'll get a bit warped over time as they are continuously played and continuously gone through, which adds to that. Again, if you talk about a lo-fi aesthetic, it takes it one step further, because that is going to become detuned and that's going to become warped, and that is your own contribution almost to that artistic movement as the listener, because your energy has been transferred into that to the extent where you're shaping and molding the art in your own right. Again, it's a physical piece which is being warped by the world around it.
Yeah. Where do you want to go next, Curtis?
In the name of manufacturing, because we're gonna talk a little bit about manufacturing it as well. When it comes to making the CDs, making the cassettes in its own right, how easy was the process in getting it done?
On my end, it was super easy, but we have someone here who can actually comment to whether it was easy or not. Shall we bring Lars in and then we'll talk? Yeah. This actually is a really nice segue into the different ways to create physical media. We've talked a lot about why we did cassettes for this, but we can actually go into more viable options if you want, where you could make CDs, vinyl, whatever have you, with on-demand things. So let's bring in Lars real quick. Lars, are you good to go? Give me a thumbs up. So Lars, 1 second. I just want to mention that this show is brought to you by our patrons who help us support what we do. And if you want to become a member and come on the show like Lars is about to, you can join. The link is in the description, patreon.com/audionautic. There's a bunch of other features and what have you, but that is one of the main ones. So let's bring Lars in real quick. Lars, what's going on?
Hey fellas, how's it going?
Dude.
Good. It's good to see you. What's up?
Not much. Good to see you, Eon. I haven't seen you in when was the last time you were on the show, man?
I don't know if this is the first one this year.
Oh man.
Maybe. Which is just unheard of.
No, you were doing NAMM when I was gone. Like you did a couple episodes, I think, when I was gone for NAMM.
It's been too long though.
Yeah,
it's definitely grown some facial hair there, dude.
Oh yeah, I got an extended break from my my part-time job, so I don't have to do anything now.
Nice.
Really weirdly.
I got my
just grow a beard,
facial hair. Oh, I'm living life. It's great.
Well, let's talk about these cassettes. So how was it to create them? Survey Channel says it's time consuming. Maybe you can attest to that.
Yes. So I've been my mission has been to try and reduce the amount of time it takes me to make a batch of tapes. And the only way to really do that is to have more decks. So here, let me just
so this is what I'm working with right now. Right now I have 3 decks. They're wired in parallel, so I just send
whatever signal, usually off of my laptop or my iPad, and I let it play through and I record each side, then I flip them. So right now 3, if I have an hour-long tape like Bendu's Semiotic Ghost tape that's a 60-minute long tape. So I think recording took me in total about 5 hours, just working with 3. Currently, I have 3 or 4 more cassette decks in my house that I am in the process of calibrating and working on. So when you want to ask, like, what's the time consuming part, maintaining enough cassette decks to actually record in a timely manner.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the actual process of like making them doesn't take all that long.
No, it doesn't take all that long.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like with yours, I think the total amount of time like I had to spend with like the recording and then the printing and the cutting and all of that, probably about like 10 to 15 hours, all said and done.
It's kind of a while though, but yeah.
Well, I mean, when you don't have much of a life, you know, it's what is time, right?
You say that's like more than a full day's work, man.
Well, you know, you just have to start it and you let it run in the background kind of process.
That's
go
true,
do something else, you know. So, you know, maybe on a day I'm working from home, you know.
There you go. Making the most of it, right?
Multitasking.
Yeah.
It's what we were bred to do, apparently.
There you go. And Lars, what made you want to start getting into duplicating the cassettes on your own or making cassettes on your own?
So, I mean, for me, like when I was a kid, the first thing I ever had was a Sony Walkman, like a cassette player. And, you know, I would always I grew up in Oklahoma. So of course, like every single cassette tape I got during my youth was a country album, but I would play these until they like completely died on me. You could play the average tape for about like, you know, 600 hours before it started acting wonky. But I just wanted that feeling because I feel like you guys were talking about, like with streaming, like I feel like you lose a lot of like the experience of listening to music, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, the service that shall not be named is probably the absolute worst offender.
Well, Smiling Errors has you. He says, Lars, Spotify, but then unicorns and baby goats.
He didn't have to say it. Smiling Errors, you did not have to say it, bro. It's okay.
And he says, you're an agent of chaos. I think he's the agent of chaos, quite honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy. I don't know what he's talking about. That's all. A nice guy.
I agree with you, Lars. You are a nice person.
But Spotify is the worst about it because Spotify, like, you log in and it's like the first thing you see on the page is like you got podcasts, you got new singles. Here's your workout mix. Here's your study mix. Here's blah 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 blah. And I feel like I know what was it, a few months ago. What was her name? Billie Eilish. She came out and said, "Hey, like my new release, like you're supposed to listen to it as one continuous experience." And I was like, "You mean
that's a novel concept?"
What? Yeah. So I feel like they're one of the worst about it. You know, Tidal is a little better because Tidal will actually like recommend albums to you based on your listening history. So I think that's a little better. But for the most part, it's like I just feel like you lose so much from that. And then like definitely. You were saying with tapes, it's like you can't really skip around on a tape. And if you want to try and skip around on a tape, like you need to get really quick with your fast forward and rewind button, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. Just
it can be done, but you know.
So
you
Lars,
might not
real quick
missed it.
Before we move on to other formats of making media and stuff for those that are interested in making media. So the way you've done it is you've got all these different decks, right? Mm-hmm. And then you just send the sound or send what going into it and it's duplicating it onto all the different cassettes. So that is, I guess, an option if you can find one of those, right? Like a duplicator or something.
Oh, well, I'm just resurrecting tape decks that I find at the thrift store.
Yeah.
I've had to get really good with cleaning, soldering, carefully taking apart mechanisms, but you know, so far I only had to toss one.
Okay. So true cassette DIY for making cassettes involves a lot of know-how, right? In terms of like cleaning, soldering, all that. Yeah, trial and error. Yeah, that's another good way to put it. But there's a lot of, it's pretty intensive to do. So there's other ways of making cassettes. So you can go through someone like Lars, like I did, where I said, "Hey, do you want to make this?" There's also, what is it? Duplication. There's that one website. There's probably a couple, but they can do it. They can do the J cards, the prints, all that. Or you ordered all that stuff separately, printed and all of that. But so if you're looking into doing cassettes, we can put some of the resources, like the websites that can do it. And
Yeah.
Lars, if you're game, I can put your contact info for anybody that might want to hit you up for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll put all that in the description afterwards. Yeah. So that's Cassettes, but now we should move over to Curtis, who's got some stuff on other forms of physical media. So we can make CDs, vinyl even. And so Curtis is going to cover some of that.
Yeah, well, let's start with what most of us know. But for those who may, we'll start with the easy stuff, shall we? If I can bring this to the stage here. So,
sorry, I beat you to it.
We have the good old Kunaki, which was a staple and a solid for a long time here at Audionautic until at the end of last year, where they started only shipping within the United States. So if you guys are in the United States or anyone who's watching in the United States, then this is the place for you. You can still do that. CD, vinyl, you can even do DVD if you wanted to. And it's solid. It's a solid entry level pay on demand. We have always found with this thing, obviously, as Sunwarper said, like you have to make 100 CDs, and then the game is to ship them, right, or to sell them and make your money back. But that's not always viable, right? So this is a print on demand, and you can literally just do one or two, and their prices are pretty damn good for what they are.
But there's a big catch.
There is a big catch. The big catch is that they no longer ship outside the United States, which is an issue for any of us who don't live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. There is, there's not a place to go. So
there is a workaround though, but it's high cost in terms of you can order it to yourself.
Yeah, so we looked at this. Yeah, so we looked at this when we were looking at what to do. This has happened around about the time the wall gathering from Bendu was coming out on Audionautic Records, and so we were kind of looking at some workarounds. You could ship it to someone that you know in the United States, or ship it to the United States, and then you are then responsible for shipping internationally. But international shipping prices are pretty ridiculous still at this point.
They are. And that's why I think they stopped to a degree, because they used to have some deal, it sounds like, or something.
Exactly. The beauty of private shipping companies has meant that it's now become not cost effective for the independent musician to ship overseas. So, yeah, if you are within the United States and your market is within the United States, then you're pretty good. But if you're out of that, then less so in that regard. Which brings us to our friend survey channel. And I'm going to share this tab instead. Now, this is relatively new, and survey channel, if you're still here, feel free to chime in, because this is very much coming off the back of your functional gloss release from a couple of weeks ago, which is also another fantastic release, by the way. It's a wonderful release. But here, this is a website called Elastic Stage, where they are printing vinyl and CDs. And apparently they'll ship anywhere in the world, or they'll ship to more places. So, for example, right now it's on the UK, but you can ship to many different places that you see here, which is really nice. I'm going to squint even to Hong Kong, specifically Hong Kong and not Hong Kong, China. There's lots of places that you can send it to. There's lots of places that you can go, and it will change, your prices for where you want to go, and it'll do it all for you. And it's awesome in that run. According to survey channel, it's pretty damn good, high quality for that. And a vinyl, 12-inch vinyl for £27.90.
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's pretty.
Because Kunaki charges, I think, to make it, they charge 30, and then you have to cover the, if they up it, because or maybe it's 35 now or something. But they've also, when they have what they claim is a high demand, they raise it to $50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still set to 50 right now. They said probably will go down in May, and then if you're trying to ship to international, that's probably another $20 or $30. So
yeah. Now, if you are, go on, Lars.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just saying, that's I wanted to get into vinyl so bad when it started coming back.
Yeah.
And even then, when it first started coming back, it still felt expensive.
Yeah,
it was expensive, but it wasn't too bad. It was pretty decent when Kunaki started. I think it was 25 or something. And then they just keep adding more. And now I think it's like 35. And then when you factor in that if you're selling it on your Bandcamp's going to take, I think, 3% or something. Then PayPal takes a fee. So if then you have to buy it on Kunaki, you have to sell it for enough that it covers the actual production and, of course, shipping costs and all that. So, yeah, it becomes a nightmare. So this is interesting. So read us through this, because I'll ask you in a second if it doesn't cover us. But it sounds like they ship it directly from themselves, right? Similar to Kunaki does.
Yeah. Okay. Steve is currently sitting on the keyboard.
He's like, you can't share the secrets. Don't share the secrets.
So yeah, so they're pretty good at this. So like this is what going into the eye. So you upload everything yourself and you create the ticket a bit like Kunaki in that sense. If you've ever used Kunaki, then you'll know what we're talking about here. You build the page on the store. So similar to what we've got here, that's the similar to survey channels here. You have a store that you go to, and you can see the release and you can physically buy it in that regard. Now, there's other ways around it, but basically what I'm trying to get across to you is that it builds a store for you in that regard, so people can go and find it. And then it looks as though any purchases that are made, you receive the money, or you receive your cut of that, and then they'll do everything else in that regard. They'll ship it and they'll send it to you, that kind of thing. Which is a really nice way of doing it. It's a bit like if you are into merchandise, if you've been making merchandise, Printful, Teespring, for example, it's exactly the same concept there, where you upload your design. In this case, it would be your artwork and your tracks. And then it's there, people buy it, and then all you have to do is check the bank every so often and then make a payout when it comes through. Seems to be a very good way of doing it. A survey channel swears by the quality. So it's not something that we have explored on Audionautic Records just yet, but it's definitely something we're going to explore moving forward, because it looks like a very good solution to the issues that we experienced with Kunaki. And we all know that Kunaki was a bit of a difficult time for everyone. Yeah, and that might be something I might, if there's interest in vinyl or CD for Through the Quiet Dark, that might be the way I go for it. But I did want to mention that you can do something similar-ish with Kunaki, where it does set up, like if you're doing vinyl, it sets up a virtual vinyl that you can play and like get an idea. So it does, and you can buy and sell directly from Kunaki, like kind of create a shop like that. But the integration is nowhere near that. You don't make a shop. It just makes like a web page that you can hit. Yes, I want to buy this, and you set the price and all that. But yeah, as Survey Channel says, it looks like it's stuck in the 2000s. So this is much more modern in its look and all that. So that's really cool. Also want to say hello to Thomas, one of our patrons, says, hello, guys, just in time to catch the last bits. Now, one thing, welcome, Thomas. Good to see you. One thing I did want to mention, though, about this method, whether it's Kunaki or Elastic Stage, if you use their storefront, and Survey Channel mentions it to yourself as well, it's nice that you don't have to do any of the shipping, and they handle all of that, the prices, all of that, but it does lessen visibility and discoverability of it. You can put on your Bandcamp page, hey, the vinyl is available here, and have a link, but it's another link someone has to click. They have to go to that. Maybe they don't want to put their credit card in a website they're not familiar with, or things like that. So it does create a bit of a barrier compared to if you're able to sell it directly on your Bandcamp. Now, I don't know. I haven't checked it out. Survey Channel can probably answer me. I would assume you could just order a couple yourself and sell them on Bandcamp directly, but then you have to handle shipping. So it's like, and you got to buy the packaging. You got to buy stuff to protect it. So it's a bummer that there's not like a great way to do it. If shipping goes down, it would work again, I suppose, or something. But yeah. I hear what you're saying, and yes, it's definitely a significant thing. I think that within that, though, there is, if we're talking about physical as being an extension of the artistic process, the shipping oneself could be considered an extension of the merchandising process, right? Again, I always come back to Shady Ridge Records for this, where they'll do a short run of CDs for a new release. And Josh is very good at creating very personable and very unique packages with the purchases, which is something not it's just something to be considered and to be warranted, because you've got handwritten notes in there, you've got extra stickers, you've got extra things and bits and bobs, which if you, as an independent musician, if you are trying to sell your artwork to your fan base, to your customer base, so to speak, that is the quintessential time and the perfect opportunity to create a connection and create that returning customer in that regard. And yes, all right, yes, you have to deal with shipping, yes, you have to deal with your own packaging and stuff like that, and yes, that lessens your profit margins, and yes, that's more time consuming, and yes, I understand all those arguments are very true and very valid. I feel like as independent musicians, that is one thing where we just have to go, all right, I think that's worth the trouble, worth the effort,
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, that's a really good point you bring up. And like when we did the Music for Imagined Landscapes limited edition with an art book and stuff, like it's really nice. I was inspired by Shady to do that because I wanted to have something more special. If you're not handling the shipping, it just feels so kind of just like we were saying, on a screen, you're hitting, ship to this person. Okay. And it just goes. And then you just, I guess, it got there. That's cool. Great. Or they send a picture and it's like, awesome. But it's even more personal if you can put a note, put stickers. Like I always, any cassette I'm selling or CD or vinyl, I put a bunch of stickers and all that type of stuff. Note, anything like that. Lars, when he sent these over, there was a Fringes sticker, Error Prone Records sticker, a Lars sticker, and then his little the floppy disk. So I mean, it's like it, and I opened that and I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's like a connection with the person that shipped it to you. Like it's just really, it's like this actual conversation sort of thing. Yeah, man. Much love. But no, it's like this actual conversation between you and the artist, or I mean, Lars obviously was making this for me, but like it's still it's I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's just like this little extra mile that just builds this connection in a different way. So
it's definitely in a world where everything's faceless and corporatized and automated, human to human.
Lars wanted to say something, and then when you said that, now he just looks defeated.
Sorry,
I heard that massive sigh. What were you going to say, Lars?
Be fun. The internet used to be fun. Now it's all dead.
Yeah, dead internet, right? Eonlake, is there anything you want to add?
No, I'm liking the look of Elastic Stage. I like the idea for anyone who wants to retain control over everything that they do and their relationship with people that are interested in what they do. I think it's great that there are tools out there that this can be done. I hope these businesses continue to succeed because I think that's very useful. A lot of the times now I'm looking at the music industry, I see a lot of disaffected people, a lot of people who are a little bit bored of the status quo, that are almost waiting for the next revolution to happen. And taking control of that as a musician makes perfect sense at the moment. And I really do feel that the next iteration of whatever the music industry and selling of recorded music looks like, it needs to be more decentralized. And if we're going to do things right, we need to sort of keep control, really, and own that relationship, because you're the product, right? If anyone is interested, you're the product, you're the source. It's your uniqueness. It's the fact that you're a human doing this stuff. Anything else is a distraction, really.
Yeah, that's well said, man.
Everything else is just a distraction. That's a fantastic way of putting it.
New t-shirt. Audionautic. Everything else is just a distraction.
Buy our merch. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget to sell t-shirts though, because that's what we're all here for, right?
Yeah, that's the Eonlake t-shirts we always say we'll make and then still have yet to make. But we will one day. We're keeping you engaged, I guess, right? Yeah. But I do want to say one thing off that, and then we'll wrap up. But it's you'll notice something that in this episode we haven't even mentioned releases on Spotify, right? And I think to what you're saying about kind of taking it back and carving out your own little spot, Eonlake, is I haven't even I put up 4 of the 8 tracks on Spotify because, as we discussed last week, I don't want to make the people who do listen to my music on there, I don't want to not give them something. But on the other hand, I'm so fed up with all of their changes, the way they just completely disrespect those who are keeping them afloat. You know, the music that exists on their platform. That I haven't shared any of the streaming links, and if someone asks, I'll be like, yeah, they're up. You know, I'll send it to them. But I'm pushing Bandcamp, my website, and then the YouTube end of it, because for me, I can I like to have the creative process be a part of it, and I think that for me is what works. So yeah, I think it's finding your own way.
Right? That's where you can be, that's where you are. That's where you can be found. That's where you tend to operate, right? So if they are interested, there's an honesty to it. It's not just about, you know, being manipulative or having a problem with certain platforms. Why would we have problems with these platforms? That's ridiculous.
What?
But there's an honesty to it. So that's where you do your thing. YouTube, particularly, if you're interested in me, this is where I am, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But to your point is what I wanted to say is there's no one way to do a music release right now. If you want to do just Bandcamp and a physical, go for it. Find a way to make that work and use that. But don't feel like if you watch, you know, YouTube music gurus or something, where like make sure you're putting ads on Meta for your Spotify, because that's the way. It's like, is that really going to end up? Because when when the money stops, are any of those people still going to be listening? Have you turned them into fans, or were they just clicked an ad, went there, listened to it, maybe added it to a playlist, but forgot you had completely existed, you know? So carve out your own way, and it's the slower process for sure. But you know, find what works for you, and then keep pushing that. That's what I would say. I don't think we're in an age where there's the one size fits all. Like in the old days, it was play shows, get seen by A&R, get a record label, you know, like this, and usually you'd get that they'd get you to squash you for the competition that they also signed. You know, like there's all this stuff. But now we can find our own way, make our platforms, and bring awareness to that platform. So do it the way you want. And Thomas says, where is Kunaki located? I think they're in Nevada. That's at least where they ship from. What were you going to say something, Lars?
Oh, no. I was just like, ever since I started my blog, like I've never accepted a single streaming link. Like if somebody tries to submit something to me, it's like, oh, here's the Spotify link. I was like,
I can only imagine your reaction if you man, I wish I would send you a Spotify link the first time now, just to see what you would have done.
I don't know if we would have been friends, man.
Probably not, but it would have been funny.
But no, I tell them, it's like, go get a Bandcamp, because it's like, like Bandcamp isn't like a perfect platform by any means. No. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's literally the platform where you have the most control over your music. You can sell your merchandise, you can set the price for your digital, like you can do basically whatever you want. And Bandcamp is just like, hey, we need our cut though, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, it all comes down to the means of production and us controlling the means of production, and it's the only way forward.
Comrade.
On that note, and the notion of community, let's just have a little quick community corner before we go, because we're coming up to an hour now. Just a few announcements. The listening party for Through the Quiet Dark is 11 a.m. on Friday. You've shifted it, haven't you, Sunwarper?
Yeah, I can't do Saturday. I got something with my son, so
that's all good. So yeah,
Friday at 11 a.m. If you can make it, it'd be awesome. I think we put the Bandcamp link for the album in the description, right? So it should be right there, the listening party. But Friday 11 a.m. Pacific.
Okay, there you go.
Friday 11 a.m. Pacific. And we have now, as of yesterday, we've got the stems for Lingering Light. So I'll put that up in the Discord tomorrow. This is the start of a new Discord challenge to remix the lead single from this release, Lingering Light. And
these are the SP stems, not the added MIDI and stuff. I couldn't get that to work. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, that is what it is. It's all cool. So I'll put that up. Probably put that up tomorrow at this time. At this point. And we have until Wednesday, the 2nd of April, to get that in. We'll have our listening party an hour before ADSN on that day, from 5 p.m. UTC. No, wait, I'm getting that wrong. It's an hour before. So, sorry. 6 p.m. UTC, 7 p.m. CET. It's the one. Yeah. So yeah, 10 a.m. Pacific. So yeah, get it into the Discord. And yeah, just have fun. It's not meant to be something that we stress over. And then through democratic vote of some description, which we're still kind of working out. Yeah, there is a $10 Tom Mann gift card for someone who wants to put in, and we deem to be the quote unquote best in that regard. As Smiling Errors has continuously reminded us in good faith, a little bit of healthy competition amongst friends is a good thing. And so we're bringing that to the forefront. But yeah, it's meant to be fun. It's not too much pressure. Come down. I'll put the stems in tomorrow, download them, flip them, whack them around, create something new. And yeah, it's going to be good fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm interested to see what everybody does. So yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, 2nd of April. I'll put the details in the description for the. I'll put the details in the Discord tomorrow. If you're not part of our Discord and you want to be part of our Discord, the link, there is a fresh link in the description below. Head on over and yeah, sign up. Come and say hi. There's a couple more people we've had in the past couple of weeks. It's really nice to meet new people and get different ideas and different perspectives. It's nice to see people logging on just before and just seeing people have chats and just kind of help each other out. It's a really good place to be communal, and it's a safe space for us synth nerds. It's good fun.
Yeah, I did want to mention we have one thing left that we were supposed to talk about. We'll just do it quick. Is if you wanted to do CDs and things like that DIY, Curtis is actually spearheading for us Project Homebrew, which he did some research to make CDs DIY. And so that's something we can talk about in a future episode. He's talked about it before, but we're about halfway to our goal in terms of getting them. So if you do want to help support us, create more CDs and things like that are in that personal vein where we can send it from ourselves with stickers, notes, all that type of stuff. You can go to patreon.com/audionautic and become a patron, or you can do a one-time donation. We'll put the PayPal link in the description. But yeah, we're almost there. We're getting there. So slowly but surely. But yeah, that we want to do, as we talk about this more and do that sort of stuff, we want to do more physicals and make these releases special, because every artist we have on our roster makes incredible music. And so we want to do something that reflects that with their artwork. So with their music, I should say. So with that, we'll call it. It's been awesome hanging out with you all. Eonlake, I'm so glad you could come on. Lars, thanks for working with me on the cassettes, and thanks for hopping on. It was great to talk with that. We'll be back 11 a.m. Pacific. And was there anything else we need to mention, Curtis?
Thank you, everyone, so much. You could be anywhere on your Wednesday. You chose to spend it with us. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we'll see you next week. It's going to be great.
Also, kudos to Curtis for not saying no and then having something else to say. He finally did it. There's a couple of weeks where you caught yourself, and this week you didn't even need to catch yourself. So nicely done.
Wow.
That was a good job. Look, we're growing. We're growing. You know, that's character. Yeah, that's character growth right there. All right. Thanks for watching it. We'll see you next week.